So this is a video I've wanted to make for a very long time, but held off on with the intention of going back and revisiting both games consecutively so that I could have the entire story fresh in my mind. But the reality and the sheer scope of all the different video games and movies that I'm currently wading around in just means that I don't really have the time to dedicate to that particular mission right now. Um, but it's still something that I would very much like to do in the future. So if by chance you don't like what I'm about to say here, then I would invite you to hold your breath because it's all pretty much all of it is going to be subject to change. And if it does indeed turn out to be the case, then I will have no issues making a part two to this and updating you all then. Um, but the original Last of Us is one of my favorite games of all time, if not one of the greatest, period. It was certainly one of those games that taught me to analyze the different aspects of storytelling a little bit closer and appreciate them in a way that I never really had before, which makes a lot of sense because it came out in or around the same time that I was working on completing my first book. Um, so I, like many, was sitting here eagerly awaiting the arrival of its sequel with kind of this feeling in the air like it had some big shoes to fill, that it was going to be a tough act to follow. And I guess to just get it over with and rip off the band aid, I didn't really like it all that much. Um, Now, that in no way, shape, or form means I hated it at all. I'm not sitting here screeching about how um, Last of Us 2 is this giant piece of shit. Um, and quite frankly, I have never fully understood the amount of hate that the game has gotten since it released. Um, but it just, you know, it wasn't probably what I wanted it to be. And it just didn't leave the same impression on me that the original game had. Um, I went into it thinking or assuming or whatever that this was going to be a story about Ellie's quest to avenge Joel's death. Going completely feral, as I believe she is very capable of doing, hacking and slashing her way to those responsible. And when she does confront Abby, that would be where she learns the truth of what Joel had done, and then would have to kind of decide what she wants to do with that information and how to process it and everything like that. But as is often the case, it's not about what I thought it was going to be, it's not about what I wanted it to be, it's about what it is, right? And I thought that the pacing was a little bit wonky uh, for me. I thought that she learned about Joel's secret a little prematurely, and that for the vast majority of the game, she knows too much. And it in many ways overly complicates um, everything. Obviously for good reason. But the issue is that when you add, all of those layers of complexity to this character, it kind of muddies her down, um, and kind of creates this disconnect between me, the player, and Ellie, the character, because all of a sudden her her true intentions and motivations and everything like that are very unclear, which means I don't really understand or have any real connection to her story. I don't sympathize with her in any real way. I don't, I ultimately don't really like her that much. And I walked away from this feeling like I was 100% in the Abby camp and that she was the true and honest hero of this story. But in the time that I've been able to do a lot of self reflection with my thoughts and my feelings and kind of absorb a lot of other people's reviews and opinions on it, I can I I honestly feel like I can understand and appreciate the story that they were trying to bring across and kind of what they were trying to do creatively. You know, I can see that Ellie very much feels at this point like a complete mental and emotional cluster F because that's exactly what she was meant to be by design. She's in this situation where she is extremely angry at Joel, which has put a significant strain on their relationship. And I would imagine that there is a tremendous sense of guilt in her, for one thing, because, you know, they were never able to reconnect or restore that in any real meaningful way that they wanted to before it was too late. I would also imagine that there was a significant sense of obligation in her as well, because, you know, regardless of the fact that Joel may or may not be the best guy, doesn't really change the fact that he is the closest thing to a father figure or a family that she's had in a very long time. Um, she is very much a character that feels like she is being pulled in multiple directions at the same time. She's very lost, searching for this, uh, you know, new sense of purpose. And you know, she's a character that kind of forces you to ask, you know, when is enough going to be enough here? Um, what is it exactly you're looking for? Where do you think you're going to find it? And when is it over? The uh, exact counterpart to that would be Abby, and sort of how disciplined and laser focused she is. She eats, breathes, and shits the concept of eye for an eye, and has dedicated many years of her life to just bulking up, getting stronger, so that when, you know, the time comes, she is physically able to do what needs to be done. Um, with all of that being said, however, I still have a significant amount of issues with the ending of the game, particularly everything that takes place after the initial confrontation that Ellie has with Abby. The part where She consciously makes the choice to throw away her little piece of paradise, everything good in her life, in the name of, um, following through with this quest, only to not follow through with it and return home empty handed and with her life completely ruined. Um, and I have no doubt in my mind that, you know, the events kind of surrounding these moments in the game were meant to be very significant, very emotionally powerful, and just really heavy on me as a player. But I personally felt like it was very flat or very hollow. We look at the ending of the original game, for example, and what makes that so impactful and so special is because it is the solidification of this father-daughter relationship between Ellie and Joel that has blossomed and been nurtured throughout the entire course of this story. Joel is somebody who has suffered and lost quite a lot in his life at this point, and he just simply doesn't want to lose anymore. So he whisks her away to safety on a judgment call, and the real belief that it's the right thing to do because he loves her. And in this situation, I'm not exactly sure what I'm supposed to get out of it. Um, you know, sure, she didn't follow through with killing Abby because she realized that, if she did so, it would mean that she was no better or different than Joel, and she obviously doesn't want to be like that. And that's great. That's all well and good. But what next? Um, what are you trying to say? Is the moral of the story here that you're this moth to a flame, somebody that where everything good in your life just has to turn to shit, and you can't emotionally handle the consequences of your actions and your decisions, so you decide to off yourself? I'm sorry, but I don't really. I can't have that much sympathy for you because you did this to yourself. You chose this path. Um, and when you had every opportunity to say, no, this isn't what I want to do. If it were up to me, let's just pretend for a second that they dropped the plot of the game in my lap and they said, give us the ending that you would want. I would use the opportunity where Tommy tracks her down, comes to her house, and says, this isn't over. We have a job to do. We have to go finish this. To flip the script a little bit and turn him into the vengeance obsessed character, and have Ellie then be the sense of reason that says, no, I don't want to do this anymore. I've been given a second chance. I've learned my lesson, and I have everything that I could ever really want in this situation in my life at the moment, and I'm not willing to risk it. And I just, it's not worth it, and it's time to let it go. where then she would have to kind of race to stop Tommy from doing something stupid and regrettable, and the events of the end game could unfold in the aftermath of that. That is what I would personally do with it. But let's just say for a second that they do that same thing. They give me the story to the game, and they say the overall ending ultimately can't be changed. It's got to end the way it ends, but you're allowed to make subtle tweaks as to how we get there. Well, there's a couple of things that I would do there as well. Um, there's of course, the given option that says that she would follow through with killing Abby, where the moment where she returns home to an empty house and realizing everything that she kind of put up at risk, that is the moment where it really, the gravity and then the heaviness of it all really hits her, and she says, "Oh my God, I am every bit the monster that Joel was," and she can't really deal with it. In which case she would seek her own way out. That is option A. Option B is that she goes to confront Abby for the last time, but decides to allow Abby to kill her. She's tired, she's just lost the will to fight, the will to live, and she kind of comes to terms with the fact that her real purpose in this life from the journey and kind of the lessons that she's learned is that you know she needs to die because she doesn't want to be the reason that innocent people have to continue being hurt, because she obviously realizes that it all kind of begins and ends with her. Either way, I think creatively you're gonna get the same outcome, but um, that's gonna add a more significant weight to her death that I just think is missing or certainly lacking in the product that we got. Um, but then there's of course this third um, creative option that says, in the event that we at some point in time get a part three to this, it would be very easy to manipulate and twist it and say that, like, hey, maybe she came home, grabbed the gun, and went for a walk in kind of a hunting situation. Maybe she went hunting. You could also say that maybe her girlfriend and the baby stuck around after all. But maybe they got themselves cornered by a group of clickers or something. So the gunshot that we hear is Ellie, acting in self-defense or more of a survival situation. I don't really know. Um, Pretty much the only thing that I do know for certain is that this is a game that has earned my respect since I originally played it. I think it's a game where I can, where I'm able to appreciate it and like it for what it is, and give it all of its credit that it's due, and flowers and everything like that. But I don't have to like it. I just don't, I'm not in love with it. I don't have to be in love with it, and I don't have to see it, um, the same way that a lot of people seem to, where it's this complete, masterpiece, every bit of what the first one was, because I just don't think um, it's quite on the same level personally. But I think that's gonna wrap this video up, guys. So until next time, as always, thanks for watching. Take care of yourselves, and we'll catch you in the next one.